Hi everyone, this is Alessio and welcome to this update for Leading Trader. We know from last week, this is a really interesting part is that last week, as we heard, and I reported this, which is that the Fed chairman, so the Fed chairman Ben Bernanke essentially came out and said, okay, you know what? We could be slowing down, potentially even ending QE, quantitative easing, by Christmas, okay? And that was certainly surprising news. And as we saw bonds, as we saw here, bonds dropped on that news. So what the Fed really was saying last week was that they're going to take off their foot off the gas pedal, that is printing money. And as we know, the stock market loves QE. But if they're going to slow down QE, or potentially even end QE, that is going to be a disaster for bonds, all right? So certainly we're going to see bonds getting crushed. But the really interesting thing is that gold did not drop on this news. Because let's remember one thing. One of the major reasons why people bought gold in the first place many years ago was as a hedge, okay, so as a hedge against QE, all right? But now that if they're saying, and if they really are serious about the whole idea of slowing down or even ending QE, that certainly spells bad news for gold, you would think. But the interesting thing, again, as I mentioned, was that gold did not get crushed. In fact, what we've done here is made sort of a double bottom pattern here. Now, of course, that may change going through this week. We don't know what's going to happen going through this week and next. But it's certainly at this moment, gold is holding itself at this level. And almost everyone that I've spoken to, from hedge fund managers and in fact even small-time traders out there, as we've seen, are already pretty bearish. They're already speculating that the gold market is going to go even lower. Now that may happen, but there's one thing we know about the market through experience, which is this, which is that markets always tend to surprise us. They always do the opposite of what we expect them to. And the really interesting question is, why is it that gold did not sell off on this news, that QE may slow down or even end by Christmas? Now, my personal belief on this is that if indeed QE is going to be slowed down or end, either it's because that market participants or investors are really not believing the Fed, because sometimes the Fed says one thing but does another. But there actually could be another reason, and probably a better reason, which is that if indeed QE is going to end, that means bonds are going to collapse. Let me just write this down. So if bonds are heading lower, that means interest rates will rise. All right? And if interest rates are rising, that means, of course, that inflation is going to show up its ugly head. So one particular reason why gold maybe is not dropping here is because gold is also seen as a hedge against, inflation. All right? So this is really beginning to get very interesting here on this market. And I think potentially we're getting very close to a game changer in gold and the stock market as a whole. So certainly we're going to be watching this very closely in the coming days and weeks ahead. But there is one thing, of course, that is keeping me kind of skeptical. By the way, this level I've just drawn here for you guys on bonds is going to be a level you want to watch very closely, that 146 level here. Okay, that's a very key support level on bonds. And if bonds take out this level, then certainly that could show us a huge indication we're seeing a rise in interest rates. Now let's just show you this particular index as well. So if you look at the dollar index, all right, this is partly what's confusing the whole situation here, because the dollar has remained particularly strong, as we've seen. Just have a look at this here. So the dollar has rallied here, remained very strong, and in fact potentially could still head higher from here. But certainly if the dollar continues to remain strong and continues to rally from here, I mean, we don't know if it will, but if it does, then that certainly is going to put downward pressure on gold and silver. For more information about trading the markets, whether you're a beginner or advanced trader, visit my website, leadingtrader.com. Thank you.